My name is Sharon Cousins. I'm a researcher and I've helped hundreds of people involving searching how to find their batch numbers first, the process, and then once they find their batch numbers, I then look at the Freedom of Information documents on the TGA FOI disclosure log, and then I search for their batch number. And then because we've now created the OpenDAEN.info website that was launched in January this year, we have filters now that you can put your batch number in and it will up within a few seconds. And proof of that is in September 2024, a woman from Queensland contacted me and we tested the timing between the TGA DAN and the OpenDAEN.info, and it took 8 minutes to find her case number. And within 30 seconds, we found hers because we have a filter, a search engine for the case number. So I've done FG0050, which is the one that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I think there's 1,500 cases and 2 deaths from memory. But we know there's only 50% of the people who report their cases on the TGA system don't report their batch numbers.
Right. So we want to hear all your stories very quickly. We go around the board. Let's go to John first, hey?
Yeah, thanks very much, Russell. My situation is that we had, myself personally, plus 2 family members, one living in Wollongong and one living in the Shire near Cronulla, all had their various batch numbers, and the 3 of us had arrhythmia to different degrees. The eldest son, Dane, by 4 minutes. He had a slight occasion with it, but it came good. I ended up having an ablation required to get the heart rhythm back into normal function. And the other twin son, Jason, he ended up having to have a major operation where they inserted both a pacemaker and a defibrillator into his left side of his chest. And to this day, of course, he's on other medication to keep his heart rate down so that the pacemaker doesn't come into play too often, which it does. He has had 2 occasions where the defibrillator has gone off and knocked him over off his feet and all that sort of thing. And unfortunately, it's been in situations where there's been other people around, but at the same time, it goes off and then he's quite okay straight after it. So thank goodness and thank God for that. So that's pretty much our situation. My wife was fine, and our daughter was fine and her family. The other element that comes into it is that our son Jason, who had the defibrillator and the pacemaker, has undergone genetic testing, and the outcome from that is that he doesn't have any gene that is associated with any form of health issues with family, etc., and that it's highly likely that the vaccination / COVID has interrupted his system and caused this health challenge.
Thanks, John. Look, Sharon, you might like to tell us that everybody on screen has their injections were from the same batch. Is that right?
So can you repeat that? I can hardly
Everybody
hear
on
you.
screen, Sharon, is have been affected by the same batch of the NRMA vaccine.
Yeah, yes. I'm on the actual OpenDAEN.info website. There's 1,216 cases, 161 are serious and 2 deaths. And I decided to look at the ages. And would you believe there's a baby under the age of 1, the youngest, and it doesn't say the sex of the child, but it was maternal exposure during breastfeeding. And the last person is up to the age of about 84. I can actually filter by sex, by age, even by months where they all occurred, and also by medical condition. We can go in by heart, the word card, C-A-R-D, can come up. So you can filter it for anything that any of these people that have got a condition, we can filter to see other people and other age groups as to whether there's a similarity. But 1,200 cases is a bad batch, I'm afraid.
Renee, how did you know that you've been part of this bad batch?
Actually, through TAN. We're in a chat group for injured people, and yeah, she came across some information and shared it with me. So from that moment forward, yeah, we've sort of been trying to reach out to other people with the same batch code and see what they're going through, see if anyone's come across any cures, and just to share information to try and get it out there and yeah, and help one another.
And Tan, where did you come across this group?
So, yeah, firstly, I just met Renee. It was just in a chat group for vax injured people. So I was very interested in the batch number thing because before Sharon's site, there was something called How Bad Is Your Batch? But they had trouble getting information from Australia. So when I did search my batch initially on there, it said 2 reports, 1 in New Zealand and 1 in Australia. So I thought that was me and 1 person in New Zealand. And then when Sharon's site come out and I had a look, I was amazed because it was just such a, better picture of Australia. And when I saw, over 1,000 and things, I really got interested. The other thing that spiked my interest initially, this is way back January last year, was I found that Pfizer had flown in special batches for their own employees. And straight away I was like, well, that's great. Like, why? And I just started asking questions. And so I put the batch thing that I'd had into the chat group, and then Renee piped up and said, hey, batch buddy, I had that batch too. And then we worked out that I was in Queensland, she'd had it in New South Wales, and then this other guy in New Zealand. And then, since the TGA have now redacted this information and that was given to me, then other people have come forward. So I've actually had 3 other people contact me, like since doing that post on Twitter and Instagram. A few of them don't want to speak, but, they've had it in Victoria, they've had it in Canberra, there's been others in New South Wales, there's others in Queensland, there's New Zealand. Like, how did this one batch get so widespread? And then all these people that are contacting me, we've got similar symptoms. It just, it's not a coincidence, I don't think.
Can I just make a comment about the batch numbers for the Australian Pfizer employee vaccination program? As of yesterday or the day before, I decided to go and look at those ones. And there are 4 listed, and they are all non-tested by the TGA. And so what does that mean? That are they secretly giving them to the Pfizer, and they will do their own testing and give it to their employees? So I'm going to be bold here. I'm going to just give them out to you. FA7338, FA7812, FC8736, FC8736, FA4598. And they were released on the 22nd of June 21. And the last one, all 3 of them, first 3, and the third one was the 30th of July 21. There are 12 cases reported on the TGA DAN for these 4 untested batches. Out of those 12 cases, 10 are deemed serious. And we have 2 teenagers in that group, a 14-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl. Now, how the heck can an employee vaccination be teenagers? So that is dead set serious. And some of the conditions that they had, the teenager, they got COVID-19, wrote vaccination failure, and they got 2 doses and it was deemed serious. And the girl had the same thing. So whether they were twins, I don't know, but they were reported on the 16th of June and the girl was the 17th of June 22. She had the same COVID-19 vaccination failure and she had 2 doses. And so some of them are just absolutely bizarre. Why would they even take a jab that's not being tested unless Pfizer did it in Australia secretly? And I'm just assuming that one of the employees got their children to be jabbed.
Luke,
At work.
possibly. Lucas, how did you know that you're on the same jab, on the same batch?
It was actually from your video. I just happened to be watching it on X and saw the batch number come up and I thought, oh, I'll search up what batch number I had, and there it was.
And what are your symptoms, Luke?
I was diagnosed with pericarditis. So I'll give you a little bit of a story. So basically, I used to be a runner, and the day after I had the first Pfizer vaccine, I woke up, went for my run, and I only made it around 50 meters down the road, and my whole chest all became extremely tight. I was unable to suck down enough air to breathe, and I've never experienced anything like that in my life, and I've had sport-induced asthma before, and this was very different. So I went home and told my wife, and discovered that she also had tightness in her chest, and we actually both went to see a cardiologist after that, and were both diagnosed with pericarditis, and that was actually prior to the borders being opened and the virus being released. So it's not COVID related, definitely the vaccine, and it all began the day after. So
how's your wife now?
we both still have pericarditis. I have now additional symptoms. So more recently, so around 2.5 years after I had the vaccine, I've now started to get venous insufficiency in my legs, and I also started to get like additional feelings around, like, so I never had any pain around on my back, and now I do. So I'm sort of getting feeling around both sides. Yeah, and so she also has pericarditis. I have constant pain, whereas she's lucky enough that it does come and go a little bit.
I've looked up the, while you've been speaking, Lucas, the heart conditions out of your batch, or your batches, and the list of heart conditions just with the letters CARD, out of the 1,200, there's 145, and pericarditis is included. And the youngest is 15, and the oldest is over 60, over 65.
Can I add to that? Mine hasn't been updated. So my report to the TGA says anaphylaxis, because that's in the first 15 minutes at the clinic. I had the allergic reaction. And I actually did call the TGA, Sharon, after we were emailing the other day, called to update with the pericarditis, myocarditis and blood clots. And they told me to email. They don't take calls. And they told me that they don't contact anyone. They just collate the information.
No, that's incorrect, because I helped a woman who lost her mother in Queensland, and we did a report together over the phone between New South Wales and Queensland, and we missed two conditions. And so she rang the TGA and emailed them, and then they added them on.
Yeah, they refused to put me through, told me that there was no phone line, and they said email it to info at, they gave me the info address. I called the 1-800 number. She actually hung up on me a few times and I kept ringing back.
What's your case number? And I'll just look it up.
I don't know my case number. My doctor reported about 13 weeks afterwards because he wouldn't report at the start. And then I said to him to put in writing why he hasn't reported it. And then he did report it like 13 weeks after. So, but he's since retired and gone.
Lucas, sorry to interrupt, but Lucas, did your cardiologist confirm to you that you had this condition following or from? From. Okay, that's good. That's honesty. And have you reported this on the TGA DAN system?
So we reported it to, I can't remember what happened at the time. For some reason, I think maybe TGA weren't taking direct. We were unable to do it ourselves. And there was a website called SafeVic, and we put it in there. And my wife's one is not in the data. Like if I go looking in the data, it's not in there. Mine is. So if I look at the date that I put it into SafeVic, it turns up it's my age, my symptoms.
Well, can I suggest then that you can go on to OpenDAEN.info, and there is a tutorial of only 16 minutes on how to report a TGA adverse event yourselves. And it shows the entire 7-point dashboard. And a woman who's vaccine injured physiotherapist in WA gave me her screen prints as she entered it, and I redacted her information. So I did it, and it's a tutorial, and so you can lodge it yourself. John, I think I should come to your home and help you lodge it for yourself as well as your son, because you need to get this documented and just to see what the TGA do, if you like.
Yeah. Sorry, if I could just add to mine, and actually off the back of Lucas's comments regarding how fit he was prior to this. Each of the three of us in our family have all been involved in elite sport, and particularly my son's being in their 40s, certainly extremely fit, or were prior to this. And myself, I'm fit as I might be for what is now a 70-year-old, but and I still exercise, etc. So yeah, look, I don't think it is a bad health factor. It's just something that comes on to anyone that decides it's time for them to have a case. So.
Yeah. Renee.
Yeah.
What can I ask you, Renee?
Well, I can also agree with John and Luke's about being the fit and healthy type. I was a teacher prior to this, so I was running around with 25 plus children every day. You can imagine how sort of physically fit you have to be for that kind of role. But also coming home to my family, I have 3 boys, so I was doing that constantly on the go, whereas these days I just even struggle getting out of bed. So it just takes so much from you. But it definitely seems to be affecting a lot of people that were actually physically fit prior to this happening.
What did the education department? How did the education department support you?
I was in the process of looking for another job. We just moved to Sydney. Just as the Sydney lockdowns commenced, it was just purely bad timing. So yes, I wasn't working at that particular point in time, I just left my previous role. So, yes, I was sort of, I knew that the whole rhetoric around education at that time was no play, no pay. And it was all-consuming to me at the time. I was very, very concerned about being forced to having to go and get these vaccines, which I struggled to even call them vaccines, done, because in my gut I felt there was something going on with them. But there was no choice. With the education system, you had to be vaccinated to qualify for work, so there was no choice surrounding that for me.
And that was a disgrace as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tan, what would you like to say?
Probably way too much, but yeah, I just think, you know, I'm really angry, and I think we all are, about this redacted piece of paper with our batch number, especially since we didn't mention this before either, but Renee and Lucas and myself, we all just had one shot, just FG0050. I think you had two, John, of the same. Yeah. So, you know, one injection, we've all got these heart issues, you know, like ongoing. I mean, the government will tell you it's mild and transient. It's not. You know, personally, my ejection fraction has just come up a little bit, and is actually quite good for my age, because I wasn't an athlete before, but I was fit. I walked, you know, every day. I mean, you know, I'm pushing 60 soon, so not, you know, a couple of years off 60. So for my age, my ejection fraction has come back up, but I still have permanent scarring. I still have an enlarged heart muscle. You know, I still can't walk up hills like I used to without getting short of breath. It's not mild and transient, and there's other issues. There's nerve stuff, there's neurological stuff, there's brain fog, there's, you know, a whole list. It's just the gift that keeps on giving. We've all had one jab, as I said, of this one batch. The TGA on the website says safe, passed, everything else. But as soon as someone puts an FOI in and says, well, show us your safety testing of this batch, and they send a black piece of paper with the information redacted, I just don't think they've got the right to do that. Like, this is in our...
Why would they send you the paper redacted? Do they give you a reason?
No, well, it wasn't my FOI. It was shown to me by others. So I'm not sure exactly who put that FOI in. I did speak to Senator Roberts. Yeah, I spoke to Senator Roberts' office.
4558. Yeah. No. 74 pages redacted, except 10 Pfizer numbers were unredacted, including the FG0050. So I just went to town on the 10, and I had the 10, 4 non-existent on the TGA batch release. How could they do that? And the others have got some case reports, but yeah, 4 are non-existent. They just removed them.
So I guess here's, you know, 4 people here that have had this batch, and here's the TGA saying, we're not going to give you that, show you that information. Like, why? I mean, we have a right to know. I really think that. And, you know, we know it's not safe. We're living it every day, all of us, and very similar symptoms. So, you know, they don't have the right. They're a government department that's supposed to be responsible for letting safe things in. I mean, you get a herbal capsule, and it gives someone a stomach ache, and they whip it off the market and charge the herb people in 5 minutes. And now you've got this other thing which has got, well, like Sharon said, 1,200 cases listed, and that's not a true number. We know that, you know, and
probably double.
Yeah, at least. At least. And, you know, we've been left too. We don't get any help. Like, it's not cheap to survive this thing. You can't get help from medical in a lot of cases because the doctors are threatened by APRA, and I've been told that by specialists, by cardiologists. Even the hospital cardiologist said he has to write the report within the law, you know, and I'm like, but just write the truth. And he's like, no. And I said, well, keeping your job. And he goes, yeah, my job's important. That's a difficulty, he said, you know, and I have proof of that, by the way. I'm not making things up. But, you know, you can't get the medical help, so you start looking for alternatives. And look, I've found some really great alternatives naturally, but it costs money, and they've left us to work it out. They've left us to pay for it. And now they've gone, oh, we're not going to show you what we did to test it. Because, I mean, they know. Why would you redact it if it was above board? It's wrong.
Sharon, have you put in further requests on FOI on this batch?
Not myself, but I can. I'm actually on an Excel document of the entire 250 batch numbers that we know have caused DA reports. And I've looked at FG0050, and I'm going to just tell you that there are 535 cases for general disorders and site administration. Obviously, you can like double this. And then there are 246 gastrointestinal. And then the next one is 574 cases. And I'll just find out what row that is. And that's nervous system, which is exactly what you said, Kanya. Okay. But obviously with the hearts, there's about 12% just in relation to the pericarditis issues and stuff. So, yeah, the worst batch number, I'll tell you, for Pfizer is ER7449. There are 3,785 cases and there are 43 deaths.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a disaster. This is like a 9/11 across Australia.
It's so inhumane.
It is. And to think that there are kids and babies that, I mean, I know how, yeah, we know, don't we? It's hard. This is hard. You know, this is not, I don't know there's no way I can put it into words what we go through. And to think, you know, that there's a baby out there that's suffering this, I'm sorry, but that,
no.
How do these people sleep at night? Like, and they're still pushing it. It's still on the market. If it was herbal, it'd be pulled off the market by now. But, you know, this is what has to make any jab injured person knows how we're being treated. It has to be deliberate, because if it was a mistake, they would be doing something about it. They're not. They're ignoring Russell's letters. They're ignoring everyone that's standing up. They're ignoring the scientists, you know, they're ignoring the doctors.
Well, it was declared by the former Federal Health Minister, Greg Hunt, that it was a global experiment. And the Pfizer study report date to be given to the European Medicines Agency was December 23. And there are not only children that have died, there are 9 children aged 5 to 17. And I know the 17-year-old, he had the Pfizer. The 5-year-old boy is known to someone that I know, and which is a tragedy. But there's also over 300 lost pregnancies. And you remember that they were declaring them as safe for women who are pregnant and breastfeeding. We have a number of babies that have been affected from mothers who got the jabs and were breastfeeding, they got rashes. And in the European Medicines Agency assessment report, there is on page 115 a summary of safety concerns, and anaphylaxis is listed at the top. And I thought, well, why is that at the top? So I read the 140-page document. This is dated the 19th of February 21. Pfizer eliminated in their study anyone who had a reaction to past vaccines. And most importantly, they eliminated participants who had reactions to the components of their jab. And somebody smart in the European Medicines Agency picked that up and said, this is an identified risk for safety. And the next point was missing information. And I thought, what does that mean? There was no data on women who are pregnant and breastfeeding, not in the initial studies. So and the very first miscarriage was the 28th of April, 2021. And as soon as I got that report that was revealed from Facebook that was taken down, it was a group of us, about 25,000, the moderators sent the report and I downloaded it. As soon as I read it, I rang the coronavirus hotline in Canberra. And I said, this is in early April 21. I get the report. And I said, excuse me, I need to speak to the head honcho of the TGA because this European report states anaphylaxis and it wasn't, they had no study participants for pregnant women or breastfeeding. And it's now going out, get jabbed. And it's okay if you're pregnant and breastfeeding, it's safe. So they gave me this number, which was the TGA's head honcho, which was called the ACV, the Advisory Committee on Vaccines, and I sent it to the chairman and the board members. And I copied it to the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. I copied it to Sky News. I copied it to WA Today and a journalist paper. I didn't get any response. And I was warning them. That was the 6th or 7th of April I sent that. I've still got that email in 2021. And then the very first miscarriage, I'm going to cry, is the 28th of April. So within a few weeks of me trying to warn them to stop them, okay, and we have now 300. Sorry, but one thing we have to remember is that people don't report this stuff. There is 1% to 6% maximum where people report this, but you use the average of 20 to 30. So if there's 141,000 cases at the moment, times that by 30 is conservative. That's 4.23 million. And there are 1,037 deaths, including those 9 children. Times that by 30, that's 31,000 deaths. I wrote to the Senate and in the inquiry for the excess mortality, and I used the ABS data between the 2019, 2020, 2021, and 22 and 23, and I subtracted the deaths, and I came to 30,000. And I even uploaded images from a embalmer called Laura Jeffrey, who was under oath on the National Inquiry's Citizens Inquiry, National Citizens Inquiry in Canada, chaired by a lawyer. And under oath, it's only a 43-minute video, she shares the specimens taken from vax-injured people. As they were coming in, they still had their bandages on them, their little band-aid to show that they were jabbed. And she's an embalmer, she took out from the carotid artery, that's what they do when they embalm, these long specimens. And they were like spaghetti-like, they were fibrous, and they actually recorded them. And all her other funeral directors in Canada were seeing the same things. And they showed it on this video, the National Citizens Inquiry. It's on their website, it's on YouTube. So I printed it and I put it in my inquiry to the Senate, okay? 3 images. And I said, please make this public. And they didn't. And so I wrote back to the Senate inquiry, the committee. I said, why didn't you make it was only 11, 12 pages, okay? Not like the AMPS one, which was thousands of pages. Mine was only 12 pages and they were mainly images. And they came back and they said, no, because of your the nature of your graphic report. And I went, what the heck? And I went back, there were just 3 images of these specimens taken from vax deceased bodies showing the clotted arteries.
Now we have 4 people, John, Renee, Tan and Luke. Why did you, Why did you have to take the vaccines in the first place, each of you? What was your personal story of taking the vaccines?
For me, being part of a US company, it was obligatory to have it, and also being on council as a counsellor. My understanding was it was obligatory to have it there as well.
Renee?
Um,
You mentioned it before.
it was, yeah, it was due to my teaching roles. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was working at home and I was one of those crazy people that was never going to have it because I didn't have flu shots or anything beforehand. But my dad got sick. I'm in Queensland. My parents are in Victoria. And yeah, I just had to ask myself, what am I going to do if I need to go down there? Like if he gets really sick, he was already in hospital. And yeah, had it to cross two borders basically against my better judgment, against my gut and against, my beliefs. I had to do head versus heart. I really thought I could just detox it in a week. 3 years later, I was wrong.
Luke?
Well, I guess I never wanted to have it. I had massive debates with all my friends about it at the time. And one of the things that happened that sort of coerced me was because I was in Victoria at the time, being told that I wasn't going to be allowed to attend the outdoor prep Christmas concert at my kid's school. And I guess the other part of it was at the time, and actually still now, I actually looked this up the other day, the statistic on injury from myocarditis or pericarditis from Pfizer is 1 in 100,000. And I also looked up this other statistic to clarify it's still the same, that at the time in 2021, the statistic they were telling us of injury from COVID itself was actually between 1 and 10 cases per 1,000 that you would get pericarditis or myocarditis. So at the time, the data seemed convincing. I had a much higher chance of getting injured by getting COVID.
And that proved to be true?
I don't believe it to be true, no. It is still interesting, though, that if you hop on ChatGPT and you ask it, that's what it spits back. And that's my memory of the data that we were being told at the time as well.
So do you believe that data was manipulated to guide you into...
I can't see how...
I never believed that. I was under more threat from a dozen other things in my life than I would than having COVID.
Right. And look, I lived in a regional area and I was not scared of getting COVID. And I didn't want to take it. And it was, experiences of trying. We were told at one point we weren't allowed to buy a coffee from the coffee shop. We went down to the coffee shop and they said, no, you're not allowed to enter into the coffee shop to make the order because you don't have a vaccine passport.
And I said, fine.
I wish I did.
No, I'm not being a smart aleck here. I think it was terrible what they did to people, but I also saw myself as a federal...
They said, oh, sorry, Russell. I was just going to say, I remember when they said, that we only had to get the one vaccine.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was like, you have to get 2 or more. And I'm trying to go through the shopping centre and I was completely and utterly injured at this point in time, and not being able to go in and demanding that they see my health records if I wanted to access something because I wasn't double jabbed. And this is just the way it is. But they wouldn't allow me access to certain things because, there was no double jab or booster or whatever. So, yeah, that's one thing that really still frustrates me, is people thinking that they could have had the right at that time to see your medical records to prove entry when they lied about it only being one jab.
Can I give a testimony about what happened to unjabbed people in Victoria? Elderly couple that I know that are Christians, they went into a Big W store because they were told to come and collect their item. And this was after the lockdowns, and they were both unjabbed. So the wife went in first, she's in her 70s, and she gave her identification, driver's license or whatever she had, her senior's card, and they wouldn't accept it. And they said, "I'm sorry, we can't find you on the system." And then she had to ring her husband, and he brought in his ID, and then they still struggled. And so the woman from the Big W called in her supervisor, and in clear audience of earshot, the supervisor said, "That's because they're unvaccinated."
Mm.
So a retail store had the knowledge of who was vaccinated and unvaccinated after the lockdowns. And something about Monash. I'll tell you this: Monash Health. There was a doctor that came on, would you believe, 9/11, the 11th of September 21, pleading with pregnant women to get jabbed. And somebody on X alerted me to this. And it was only about a year or so ago. So I wrote a little passage of a comment because everyone was tagging their friends to say, "Get jabbed, get jabbed." And I said, "Excuse me, you're saying this in September 21. Do you realize the first miscarriage following the Pfizer was the 28th of April? And there's been hundreds of cases in the last few months. And you're telling people to get it?" And the very next day, I was not only my comment deleted, I was banned from a public Facebook group of Monash Health. But I screen printed it.
I asked this when we're winding up. I asked this of every group of people, and you might give to me. What would you like to say to your politicians that they might hear this? We'll start. Who wants to start? 10.
We're really tired of this. You're deliberately hiding the information. If it's safe, show us. If it's not safe, or if you're not going to show us, then stand up. I want 5 minutes with you face to face to tell me why you're not going to show me that information. I'll happily fly to Canberra, whatever.
Renee?
5 minutes.
I've actually tried to contact many ministers to try and get something from them to show that they have some sort of decency about them. Unfortunately, they haven't proven to be so. They just ignore everything I send them. I have got in contact with Councillor Adrian McRae, and he's been fantastic, along with yourself, Russell, and Tanya, and the people from this is my brain fog kicking in. Let me have a look here. Bill Shorten's office. They've been absolutely wonderful trying to guide me through everything down the road with everything that I'm trying to do with dealing with the TGA and all the batch numbers and everything that's going on at the moment. And I've actually got in contact with Dr. David Speaker, who did the testing on the batches for the DNA contamination. So I'd just like to read out his email that he gave to me to share around regarding the information that he found within those vials. So he said to us, "My deepest sympathies for your vaccine injury. These are common and should never have occurred. I totally agree. Keep strong and do what you can. I just checked my report and I did not test 5G0050, which is extremely unfortunate. I believe that 5G0050 would have been a purple top Pfizer BioNTech that used phosphate buffered saline. These lots are what appear to have caused the most adverse events." And he goes on to say, "We know that they all have excessive amounts of DNA and contain the SB40 promoter enhancer sequence." So it's concerning to me when he mentions the purple top. I'm like, okay, so does that mean that every different colour vial has something completely different in it then? I'd like to understand why that would be.
John.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. Look, for me, it's about the honesty factor. It's about the health department to right through the politicians to come out and say, look, we understand that there has been mistakes made, that some of these batches that have come through from the various health organisations, that they weren't up to the standard that would generally be the case given the longevity normally of testing procedures, and that we understand the pain and angst that's there in the public arena, and then look to either compensate those who have had worst case scenarios, if you wish, or at least make available the health functions to where they're at, to where they need to go to be freely available and become more helpful than rather than the hidden closets that positions that have been taken. That'd be my take on it. It's just an honesty factor for me, Russell.
Yeah. Lucas.
I think, well, I want a miracle, and that is the whole thing, to have a complete reversal. Basically, instead of hiding things, everything become public. Instead of not doing research on people who are injured, do research. People who are injured, they're going to need a payout to survive. And not only that, the vaccines need to be removed from the market. My parents,
Straight away.
every time they go to the GP, they get told that they need another vaccine. I think my dad is actually up to like 7, even though he's got an injured son. He still believes. It's crazy. Drives him mad.
With my mother.
Yeah. And so is my mum. And every time they go to the doctor, they're in their 70s, they get told they need another one. And it just needs to stop. I think they're still recommending it for children, like for babies. It's madness. Doesn't work.
Sharon, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I've got 7 quick-fired real time solutions. One we've already mentioned, to halt the vaccines, just like the Southwest Health District in Idaho. Number 2, to tear up the pharmaceutical contracts. 3, which will remove their immunity. We need the president in America, Trump, in January to amend the legislation that Ronald Reagan brought in, which gave indemnity to the pharmaceuticals, and they brought out that vaccine indemnity. So that immunity is to be removed by legislation and by contract. Remove the provisional status, backdoor entrance of medicines and vaccines that TG has. Provisional status to be removed. It has to be done on safety. They said that they were working at the speed of science. They should have been working at the speed of safety. To set up a task force in relation to the DNA contamination, and Dr. Philip Buchholz gave an indication of a solution for that in his Senate inquiry in September 2023 in South Carolina. He said, if in my opinion, if I was vaccinated, I would get some stem cells and test it to see if there's any DNA contamination. So that's something that can be done. Next one would be to have a funding organized for collaboration across all the political parties and politicians for jab injury recovery, jab injury solutions, jab injury And I can tell you now, there's a woman in Wollongong who got the AstraZeneca and she got pericarditis. And she's on the Jab Injuries Australia story. And I read what happened to her. She got really badly treated by Wollongong Hospital. She had to go to a private hospital and she was given intravenous vitamins to get rid of the toxins. And she got much better. She felt like she was having a cold coming out of it. She had 2 sessions of this intravenous vitamin drip and she recovered. And she was 19. So, and I also want, in relation to that funding, jab harm prevention, which we need much more awareness of this. And lastly, in the election, we vote for people who will support these real-time solutions.
Beautiful.
The federal election.
I want to say this to Lucas. Lucas, I believe in miracles. And I believe that there's a whole lot going on here that we can flip the tables, turn it round. And you who, and I think Sharon heard me say this at a conference the other day, that, and I'm looking straight into the camera now and saying to the world, Australia, it is time the hunters became the hunted. It's time to turn the tables. And these people who have stopped you, Lucas, going in for a cup of coffee, stopped you going to the children's show, stopped everything. We need to change the tables and they will feel the war coming from the vaccine.
And the ones that are hiding that info from us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless you all for coming on today and being so brave to do that. It sounds crazy, but I'm wishing you a better Christmas than you expect.
All the best to everyone.
Thank you.
Same.
Thanks.
And
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you,
Thanks, Russell.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you
you
for
for everything.
Nice to meet you all as
See you
well.
later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.